everybody. Look at that. I'm on time tonight. I'm on time and my internet's working. It's a miracle. So no internet issues at home today. Thank goodness. Hope you guys are doing well. It is, it's Tuesday, the 14th of March already. This year is starting to crank by. So let's go through a few things on some of our cases, okay? Let's talk about the Safety Act real briefly. I think it's important to point out. I don't know if you guys were watching today, but they had oral argument in front of the Illinois Supreme Court today on the Safety Act. What's interesting about the Safety Act as it relates to the gun bill is that the Safety Act was also passed in a procedurally unconstitutional manner by violating the 3 readings rule and among other things. But the plaintiffs in that case didn't appeal. They did not appeal that issue to the Illinois Supreme Court. So the Illinois Supreme Court is hearing a constitutional argument on the Safety Act, but it's not hearing the procedural issues. It's hearing the separation of powers issue, that bail is not something that can be modified by the legislature. It's for the judiciary. So those are solid arguments. I didn't get a chance to listen today to any of that. I heard that the state, the governor's office, et cetera, didn't do a very good job. And so I'm hopeful that that gets struck down because of the separation of powers. But it's important to note that they didn't argue the procedural issues of this gut and replace and these procedural problems. Okay, they didn't. So let's move on now to our gun case. Before I talk about the gun case, I've been thinking about something. As I told you guys the other day, I'm not particularly excited about the way that the Illinois State Rifle Association has been representing the citizens of Illinois. And I didn't pay a lot of attention for a while to that organization, but the more I've been paying attention the last few months since this whole gun issue started, I've talked to gun people across the state, very knowledgeable, intelligent people. I've also talked to them nationwide. And I'm always willing to learn and listen to people that know more than me and try to understand things that I need to understand. And consistently across the board, none of them had anything good to say about the Illinois State Rifle Association. I found it kind of odd, actually, because I wasn't there to criticize or attack them. But keeping that conversation that I'd had with many people in mind, I've watched their behavior the last week or two. They've been all over the place making comments about the state gun cases that we're a part of, and they don't even know what they're talking about. They're completely all over the board with nonsense. And again, making commentary, most importantly, making commentary about cases that they got nothing to do with whatsoever. It's almost like them and Dan Calkins are buddies, and they're trying to help Danny Boy from looking like a bigger fool than he already does. And I'm like, why is the Illinois State Rifle Association doing this? I don't understand. What's their angle, right? Everybody, sometimes has an angle. They're trying to promote an issue or an idea or an agenda, etc. What's their angle? I didn't really figure out what their angle was, other than maybe their membership is declining and they're trying to appear relevant. And so they're chiming in on issues that they're not even involved in. It's odd because they're in the federal case in Southern District of Illinois. They're not in the state court cases. But even in the federal cases, I'm told by people inside those cases that the State Rifle Association is not really doing anything. They're kind of just along for the ride, and they're not doing the heavy lifting in the federal case. So I don't know. I'm not particularly excited about that. And then for the last few years, we've also had parents, because I've been thinking about the things that I've been passionate about. I've always been passionate about firearms and weapons. I've been, shooting guns since I could walk. And I remember when I was running for office as Attorney General, some, idiot said that Tom's not a gun guy. And I started laughing. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I own more guns than probably 10 people combined. But so guns has always been important. Another thing is rights of children and parents being able to be the ones that raise their children. We fought that with the mask and stuff like that. And there's really no groups, there's no associations or any types of collective organizations that I'm aware of, at least, that fight for parents' rights in the state. I'm talking statewide parent rights. And so I've been thinking about that, and I've decided, I'm not sure how we're going to structure it yet, but I'm going to put together either an association or an organization. My son just came in, of some sort. Got to let me think that through. And it's going to be an organization that actually fights for people, right? Politically, legally, when necessary, all of the above. Because these organizations, again, like the State Rifle Association, it seems like they're more concerned about their own survival than they are actually just fighting for people. And if you fight for people, your survival will result from you doing what's right by people. But it seems like politics has become more important to them. And again, this is my humble opinion. You may disagree. Maybe it's because they, the executive director makes 90 or 100 grand a year for being just a figurehead. And maybe they have, I've not seen their financials, but it doesn't seem like they're fighting. The Illinois State Rifle Association could have filed the exact same case that I filed on behalf of their members in some fashion. Had to have been, you can't file it really for the association. You could say, hey, you're a member of the association. We're going to seek a restraining order for you in state court. They didn't do any of that. They didn't think about it. Didn't cross their mind, So why not? Are they really advocating for gun owners? Maybe they are, and I don't see it. But I'm frustrated enough is that I'm going to at least put something together, and you all can decide whether you want to do it or not. And you want to have Tom out here spending most of his time fighting, gun rights issues and parent rights issues on a grand scale. We can talk about that. I'm not opposed to it because that's what I'm passionate about. And when I get passionate about something, I usually don't let up on it. So, or I can just keep practicing law the way that I do right now, and it's just fine. But keep that in mind. It's something that's going to come. I think that gun owners and parents and things of that nature, where we typically are moderate/conservative, we're not the progressive liberals and those doofuses, but moderate conservatives, they need better, organizations that want to focus on fighting for your rights statewide and on a national level. So keep that in mind. It's coming, okay? State Rifle Association doesn't like it. I don't care. And keep talking about me. Doesn't really matter. They're cowards. So let's talk about the gun cases, guys, okay? With our gun cases, we have our 3 gun cases that are consolidated into Effingham. They got Dan Calkins' case in Macon County. Now, when we filed to consolidate those cases, it's very important. I want you guys to understand this stuff. When we moved to consolidate all 4 of those cases together, and again, when I call our cases 3 cases, there's kind of 4 because we consolidated and added people in. So let's consider our case right now just one case. Our Effingham cases, they're ours. Then you had the Macon County case where I said, Supreme Court, let's consolidate them all together. You guys are aware of that, right? And Dan Calkins and the governor and the attorney general all said, no, we can't consolidate all these cases together. They're so different and they're so distinct and they're not the same procedurally, so we need to keep them separate. And ultimately, that's what the Supreme Court decided to do, so be it. But what the ironic part of it is that the reason that they wanted to keep the Macon County case separate, the only reason that the governor and the attorney general wanted to keep it separate, is because they had Dan Calkins right where they wanted them to do exactly what they wanted to do, the way that they wanted to do it, to give them the best chance they can of defeating what was going on with this gun bill and something else that I'll get to. And so that's why they argued to keep them separate, because there was a time where the governor and the attorney general wanted to consolidate all of them, including Macon County, until they realized that me, on behalf of all of us, my clients, weren't going to play their games. And then we got to keep that Macon County case separate because Dan was a patsy. So that case is now separate, and it's on its way to the Supreme Court. You guys are aware of that, right? They hurried up and rushed it. They're trying to slow our case down, which I'll get to, and they're trying to speed that case up to the Supreme Court. The issue of the gun law, of this gun, let's call it a gun ban, okay? It's an important issue for you guys, right? And me too. You know what's a bigger issue? The bigger issue is the unconstitutional procedural way we pass laws in Illinois. Just like they did the Safety Act, just like they've done the gun law, And like they do overwhelmingly every law that they pass, that they just want to ram it through. That's what they do. And they will protect that at any cost, because that's how they control and manipulate Illinois politics. Think of how powerful that is for them to want to retain the ability to keep playing those games. Does that make sense to you guys? That's what they're about. And that issue, ladies and gentlemen, of those procedural games is more important to the governor and the legislature than this gun law. It's more important than the gun law. They can accept losing the gun law. They can. What they can't accept and what they must fight against is losing the ability to play these games in the way that they pass laws. They're going to fight that thing to the very end, because that would alter the course of politics in Illinois for the rest of our generations. As long as this country's in place, it would alter Illinois politics. That's how important it is. And that's what the governor and the General Assembly is really worried about. And that's why they wanted to keep our cases separate from Dan's, because Dan's not smart enough to know that that's really the issue. Dan thinks that this case is only about guns. This is much bigger than guns, okay? So when they did the appeal in the Macon County case with Dan's case, the only thing they appealed was the gun issue. They didn't appeal the procedural issues. It didn't go to the Supreme Court. It's not even there. So not only is the Macon County case woefully under-prepared for the gun argument that risks us losing it, they didn't even take the procedural issue to the Supreme Court. And let me tell you why that's important. The Supreme Court doesn't have to hear every case that comes in front of them unless there's been a finding that a statute is unconstitutional. When a statute is deemed unconstitutional, like this one has been, the Supreme Court has to take that case. That was the opportunity to put in front of them these procedural unconstitutional issues, tie them together, okay? Because if it's just the issue of procedural unconstitutionality, the Supreme Court doesn't have to hear that issue. They can walk away from it. So making sure that they both got taken to the Supreme Court at the same time was critical, which is what we were working on, okay? We were working on taking the gun case on the equal protection. That was our ticket to the Supreme Court to argue the procedural issues of unconstitutionality. We had them nailed to the cross of getting those issues in front of the Supreme Court. And what they used Dan for was to go, okay, we'll take the gun case there on an expedited basis, but we're not, Dan wasn't smart enough to take the procedural issue with it and tie them together. That's what the governor was trying to accomplish the whole time, is keep this issue of procedural unconstitutional lawmaking out of the Supreme Court's hands. They didn't want them to see that. And that's why they did that. They're willing to maybe even lose the gun case. There's chance Dan could prevail on the gun case, and because it's all of our arguments that you guys hired me to make. Dan's case does nothing new but make the arguments that we've already made on your behalf. Could it be successful? Maybe. But what will never be successful in Dan's case is the procedural gamesmanship that could alter the course of Illinois politics that keeps Republicans like Dan and his Freedom Caucus in a completely irrelevant political position, and it will for the foreseeable future. Walked away from that. So the governor, as I've told you before, is playing chess. And I would like to say that Coggins is playing checkers, but really what he's doing is playing with crayons, because he didn't have enough sense to even know that they played him like a fiddle. Now let's go to our cases, okay? Effingham County. Here's what they're trying to do in Effingham County now, because our cases, again, are separate. I've still got discovery pending. They're asking the judge, they want to ask the judge in Effingham, and we have a hearing on the 21st of March. They're asking the judge in Effingham to stay, to put a stop temporarily on our case while Dan's is proceeding in the Supreme Court. So they're saying, hey, while Dan's case is up there in the Supreme Court, let's just hold this case temporarily in Effingham and don't let it proceed until we see what happens up there. They're trying to create a stall tactic. And again, If I was the governor and the attorney general, I'd be arguing the same thing. But they're trying to do that to keep us from getting our hands on the discovery documents that will absolutely destroy them politically in Illinois on how they pass laws, as well as on the gun case. So they want to put a halt to our discovery request and to our case proceeding while Dan's case is up on appeal. That's always been their tactic all along. And again, if on the 21st of March, if the governor and the attorney general and them are successful in staying our case, because I'm going to argue quite feverishly that it should not be, but if the judge disagrees with us and he gives the governor what they want and says we can't proceed, why the Dan's case is pending in Supreme Court, that's all on Dan Calkins. That's 100% on Dan Calkins, which means not only did he screw his own case up, he's causing you guys grief. 7,000 of you, he's causing grief in your case. Okay? So that's what we're going to argue on the 21st of March. Keep you up to date. In the meantime, for the foreseeable future, May, June of this year, if you're in our cases, all 7,000 of you, you're free to go buy whatever you want. And I encourage you to go see our 188 FFLs and buy anything that you want to buy, all you want to buy, right? So that is still absolutely, you can do that. But in the interim now, I'm fighting a fight that I should have never had to fight because Dan screwed us up. Because, see, we could have done, here's what we were going to do. We were going to do all of our discovery. We were going to nail this case down and we're going to hammer it home. And then we were going to get a final ruling out of our court on equal protection of unconstitutional law and equal protection, guaranteed to get that, and a ruling at the same time on the procedural unconstitutional ways with 3 readings. Then when we did our appeal, we take both of those issues to the Supreme Court at the same time, right? Both of them. That way we were ensured with 100% certainty that our unconstitutional lawmaking process would be heard by the Supreme Court. Had to be heard by them at the same time. That's what we had set up, and Dan's screwing us up because now the governor's trying to stall our case, and he wants to try to keep us from taking the procedural unconstitutional lawmaking to the Supreme Court of Illinois. They don't want that there right now, right? They don't want it there. They don't want it there with me arguing it. So that's what they're trying to do. And I'm going to fight that every step of the way. We got a hearing on the 21st of March where I'm going to argue our case should not be stalled out and we should be able to proceed with our discovery the same way we were proceeding before all of this happened. And that scares the governor, the attorney, not so much the attorney general, he's just representing people. The Speaker of the House, Speaker Welch, President Harmon, scares them something fierce to have to admit in a sworn document they're violating the Constitution of the state of Illinois. How often do you get the chance to pin down the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate under oath that they're doing these things wrong? How often? This might be the only chance in our lifetime to be able to do that. I'm hopeful or not, but it could be. Dan screwed it up for us. And I don't think he's smart enough to understand how bad he screwed this up for everybody, how bad he screwed it up. And the governor and the attorney general and the speaker and the president and the senate are all laughing at him. They're all laughing at him about how easy he was and how gullible he was. Oh, I'm going to be the big guy. I'm going to go to the Supreme Court of Illinois on the gun case. Big freaking deal. We were always going to the Supreme Court on the gun case. We wanted to go to the Supreme Court on the bigger issue for the long-term health of our state, of how they pass laws. He just walked right away from that. Call it stupidity, call it arrogance, call it vanity. You put whatever word you want to put on it. That's what he did. It's irrefutable with 100% certainty. You can take that to the bank. And anybody that tells you otherwise doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Okay? Now let's talk about this nonsense you've been hearing about a statewide ban on this law. It's bullshit. It's not true. It is false, 100%. You've probably seen some of the posts going around from other gun shops in Illinois whose lawyers have said it's not true, that Calkins and the State Rifle Association don't know what they're talking about. Those lawyers are right. The Attorney General of Illinois, who you know him and I don't agree on much, a governor who I agree with even less. All three of us, the governor, the attorney general, and me, agree that this ruling out of Macon County did not create a statewide ban on this law. It doesn't even make any sense. None whatsoever. There's not even injunction language in their order, for one, because Dan's lawyer didn't even draft the order. The attorney general drafted the final order. That's great. Great for the governor and the attorney general, not for Dan. So, but merely the judge in Macon County entered a ruling that was, he had to enter. It wasn't anything he could do differently because of our ruling in the 5th Appellate District in Accuracy, saying the law is unconstitutional. Okay, the appellate court already said that, so nothing new. It's unconstitutional in a final order. What does that mean? What it means is that it fast tracks to the state Supreme Court, and then the state Supreme Court has to determine whether they agree with that or not. And if they agree, the state Supreme Court of Illinois, law is wiped out statewide. But one judge in any little county cannot wipe that law out and its applicability statewide. They don't have the jurisdiction for that, absent some kind of class certification that's never happened. Let me tell you how that makes sense. You remember when the judge in Kankakee County in the Safety Act a few months ago said that the Safety Act was unconstitutional? The judge in Kankakee did that. You all remember that. The case then got appealed to the Supreme Court of Illinois. What did the Supreme Court of Illinois do in the Safety Act? The Supreme Court of Illinois entered an order with their power that says this law cannot be enforced statewide. It's on hold statewide. Remember that? Supreme Court did that. Why did the Supreme Court do that if, according to Dan and the State Rifle Association, a county court can rule it's unconstitutional and you can't apply it statewide? Right? That's the same analogy. So if the Supreme Court was needed to stop the Safety Act statewide, the Supreme Court's needed to stop the gun weapon ban statewide. The county court can't do it. And it's so simple. So when Dan started saying that nonsense, people were getting confused. There were some gun shops that started selling weapons to anybody they wanted. And guess what? Many of them are being investigated by the state police now, because the governor and the state police and the attorney general, they're not responding to Dan Calkins. They're going to ignore him because he's creating a cluster, you know what, statewide, and that benefits the governor and the attorney general and the state police. So they're not going to comment on that and tell Danny's wrong. They're just going to be quiet, and they're enforcing this law. Absent enforcing it against us and the 7,000 individually named plaintiffs, they can't enforce it against them. Well, then the State Rifle Association chimed in and said, oh, it's statewide ban, statewide ban. It's like, what are you even talking about? Well, now if you go and look, they did that on March 9th. Then, like 2 days ago, they went back and changed their March 9th press release. They didn't issue an updated press release saying we were wrong. Here's our new one. They just went in and changed it, made it look like it was how it was originally presented, saying, well, you know, it doesn't prohibit the Illinois State Police from enforcing the law, and you could still get charged with a crime, and then you might have to spend a lot of money. It's like, yeah, no shit. That's what we've been saying all along. But guess who the Illinois State Police cannot enforce that law against? My 7,000 clients. Can't enforce it against them. They do that, I'll throw them in jail. A judge will, because I'll ask them to hold them in contempt. So Illinois State Rifle Association recanted what they said, kind of. They didn't want to eat crow and say we didn't know what the hell we were talking about. So they tried to make it, they tried to blur it. And that's when I got peeved off. And as I started this conversation with you guys going, you know what? We need a real gun. And there are some good small gun advocacy groups in Illinois. Don't get me wrong. There are a few. Todd Vandermeide up north, that guy's smart. He knows what he's doing. And if you're a part of his organization, you're in good hands. Todd is an intelligent, brilliant guy. He thinks through things very detailed, and I respect him. So I'm not saying that there aren't any gun advocacy groups in Illinois. I'm sure there's others too. State Rifle Association has become too bureaucratic. They're more concerned about hobnobbing with the legislature than they are fighting for your rights. Because again, they could have filed a state court case arguing equal protection, etc. They didn't even think about it. They didn't cross their mind. So that's why I'm going to work on what I've told you I'm going to work on. And hopefully it'll work out, because Nothing would please me more than spend my time doing what we're doing right now on a more long-term basis than just this law. So that's what I got for you guys. I hope that brings you up to date, up to speed with what's going on. After we have our hearing on the 21st about whether, Judge Jarman, who Chief Judge, is going to hear our arguments, where I'm going to say, I'm not going to slow our case down. We're full steam ahead. We'll see what the man says, okay? And we'll go from there, and I'll let you guys know. But again, if our case gets stalled out while Calkins is at the Supreme Court, you guys need to let him know about it, right? Need to let him know about it. And people that don't like what I'm saying, because, you guys know I'm a Republican, right? I'm probably a moderate Republican. I'm not as right-wing conservative as a lot of people might think I am. But, Calkins and them are Republicans. I don't care. If you do stupid shit, I'm going to say you're doing it. I'm not going to go, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because you're a part of the same party I'm in. That's why politics sucks, because people are more concerned about party allegiance than they are doing right by people. Do right by people. And if that means sometimes Republicans are wrong, that's okay. Sometimes that means they're right. That's okay. Sometimes Democrats are right. Not very damned often in Illinois. But every now and again, a Democrat might not have a bad idea too. What the hell's wrong with that? We're going to say, well, we're Republicans, so we can't support that idea, even though it might be okay because we can't support them. I hate that crap, right? So people that don't like the fact that I called out Mr. Calkins, I don't give a damn, right? That means you don't want to support me? I don't care. But I'm going to call it how I see it 100% of the time. And again, if I make a mistake and if I do something wrong or if I make a stupid decision, I'll admit it, because I'm not perfect either. I'm not stupid. And if I make a decision that I know is not wise and I figure out that it's not wise, I'm going to go, okay, I made a bad call. Calkins made a horrible decision. It was an ignorant decision. It was short-sighted. It's why Democrats control Illinois and Republicans can't get anywhere, because guys like him. And it's unfortunate, but I'm not going to quit talking about it because it hurts my clients and it hurts the people of Illinois. And that's all I really care about. All right. Let me see here. No, Sherry, you cannot sue Dan for what he's doing to our case. Sadly, being stupid is not a crime, or it's not something I can sue somebody for. So politically, all you can do is unelect the guy. So, I don't know if you live in his area, Sherry, but no, I can't do anything to him. All I can do is talk about it and tell you guys what I think is the truth. And, you do with it what you can. But no, you can't sue him, dear. Sorry. Johnny says, what do you do if we have an issue with law enforcement while under the TRO carrying our firearms with 15-round mag? You call me, right? If you have an issue with law enforcement while you're under the TRO and you think, or they think that they're going to enforce that law against you, send me an email. That's all you got to do. I'm your lawyer, so that's what you do. Send me an email, Johnny. I don't think you'll have that problem once the Illinois State Police knows you're covered by the TRO. Let me see here if I got any more questions for you guys. Okay, that's a good question. The federal hearing, there's a federal case right now in the Southern District of Illinois. There's a few of them that got consolidated. State Rifle Association is one of them. They're not really doing anything. But the group that Todd Vandermite is working with, the case that he's involved in, that's excellent work that they're doing, you guys. Excellent, excellent work. The only thing they haven't argued yet in the federal cases, which is fine, is equal protection. So besides equal protection, they're arguing the Second Amendment stuff very effectively. And they're right now going to be close here and around April 12th of we might get a federal injunction that would be statewide. I promise you, the first second that we have a statewide injunction out of a federal court, I will tell the world. I'll tell you all. But Todd's doing a great job with his team, a great job. And so I've not interfered with that, because you have to respect your other people that are working together if they're doing a good job. Right now, as it relates to Second Amendment, there's nothing new that we can bring to the table that Todd's not already doing. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt till April to see what happens. So if and when it becomes necessary, we'll jump right into that federal issue if I know that additional efforts needed to bolster and to further my client's agenda. Right now, we don't have to do that because of what Todd is doing. If Todd wasn't there with his team, we'd be right in the middle of it because the other ones I'm not particularly excited about. But let's give them a little time in the federal case because an injunction out of the federal court that Todd's working on could have statewide implication, which would include all of us too, okay? But we're ready to go in the federal court if we need to. I talk to Todd a lot. Again, I have great respect for him. He's a smart guy. I know exactly what's going on in his case, and what's going on in his case will benefit my clients. And so I'm all about what Todd's doing. No, you don't need to join, Todd or Gene. You don't need to join. Just, again, let that federal case play its role out. We're fine with what's going on there right now, okay? I mean, somebody asked the question that somebody's in this TRO and they've got guns at a pawn shop and the pawn shop won't give them back. I mean, I can't force the pawn shop to give you the guns back. You're covered under a TRO. You can go buy, trade, whatever you want under this without you getting in trouble with any kind of criminal prosecution. I can't force a third party to do anything, you guys. The third party can make their decisions if they want, even if they're wrong. So the pawn shop can absolutely transfer those weapons back to one of my clients, and I would be glad to call them and tell them that, but I can't make them do that. The only thing I'm doing with this injunction is protecting you from the state. I can't force somebody to do business with you. I hope that makes sense. Let's talk about this for a second. There's a lot of chatter going on about you guys know on the Supreme Court, there's 7 justices on the Supreme Court, okay? 5 of them are Democrats, 2 of them are Republicans. We have 3 Democrats from Cook County, which is the first appellate district. You have 5 appellate districts, okay, in Illinois. 3 of our justices come from the first appellate district in Cook County. Then you've got 1 Supreme Court justice from the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th appellate districts, okay? So 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 4 of our appellate districts, you have 1 Supreme Court justice each. That's 4 of them. And then Cook County has 3. That gives you 7. So the Supreme Court justices from the 2nd and the 3rd appellate districts are Democrats that just got elected this last election cycle from the 2nd and the 3rd. The 4th and the 5th, which is Springfield South, 4th and 5th, they're Republicans, okay? Justice White, Justice Overstreet. So there's a lot of conversation going on about, well, these justices from the 2nd and the 3rd appellate districts that just got elected got a bunch of money from Governor Pritzker. And so they need to recuse themselves. They need to recuse themselves because they're conflicted. I'm not going to get into that conversation. All I can say is I'm asking you to consider this. If they do recuse themselves out of the 2nd and the 3rd appellate districts, what are you left with? You're left with 5 justices, 3 of them from Cook County, then 2 Republicans from the 4th and the 5th. Are 3 Cook County justices and 2 Republicans a better scenario than 5 justices that are Democrats and 2 Republicans, with the 2 that you're asking to recuse themselves coming from areas of Illinois that are not as Democratic and liberal as Cook County? The 2nd and the 3rd appellate districts are not as liberal as Cook County. So those justices, if you're concerned that politics sways them, if it's your concern, I'm not saying it's mine, ask yourself, getting rid of those 2, hypothetically, is that a better scenario to leave you with the 3 from Cook County and 2 from the 2 Republicans? I would ask you to question whether that's a better scenario than having all 7 of them. And you go figure it out what you want from there, okay? I mean, I don't have anything else more to say about that. It's based on population, Joe. That's why Cook County gets 3. Josh, I would humbly disagree with you. Josh says if we have a Democrat majority court, we will never prevail in Illinois. Okay? Let me tell you how. If you have a court, because again, I'm going to say courts are people. We have a United States Supreme Court right now that is 6 Republicans, 3 Democrats. And there would be Democrats that would say, well, the deck is stacked at the Supreme Court of the United States. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that Supreme Court justices are people, okay? And since they are people with their own beliefs, their own values, etc., they may be inclined to think a certain way. Okay, let's accept that as a human condition. How do you fight back as a lawyer? How do I fight back against that? You with me, Joe? I put the best case I can possibly put together that supports my position to the point that that justice who may not be inclined or desirous to do what I want them to do has to, because I've so overwhelmingly convinced them that I'm right. You with me, Joe? So if I know that I've got a 5-2 Supreme Court in Illinois that's Democrat, and I'm willing to accept as a matter of human condition that I've got to do a really good job to convince them that that you should give me what I want, that means I got to do a better job. And you know what that means I don't do, Joe? I don't run my ass to the Supreme Court not prepared. I put my best case together. And guess who didn't put their best case together? Danny Boy Calkins didn't. So he's running to a Supreme Court that has a makeup of people who may not be, again, it's a matter of human condition, guys. You have to accept that judges are people like the rest of us are people. And that's just life. It's not a criticism. And I would be the same way in the United States Supreme Court. Is you have to put your best case together, you guys, and you have to do the best job you can to say, you know what? This is why I'm right. This is why you agree with me, right? You guys remember with Judge Grisho when we did the mass case. I lost that case the first time I was in front of her. What did I do? I came back again with the best case I could put together, as compelling as an argument as I could make, and I won for you. That's what we have to do in this gun case, and that's where Dan Calkins probably causing us problems. I'll just leave it at that. So I hope that answers your question, Joe. Okay. Joyce, it doesn't matter if judges have a party affiliation, ma'am. Judges are people. They're human beings who have, again, they have a value structure. They have a belief structure. They have all of those things that make them who they are based on their life experiences. And so whether they're affiliated with a party or not, that individual, it's almost like school board members. School board members aren't party affiliated, but guess what? The ones that typically get elected to school board members for the most part are liberals, and they're Democrats. Because again, it's a belief structure of who we are as people. The party affiliation, it's just a way to identify people for who they are. But you take party affiliation away from judges, ma'am, it doesn't change anything. You still have the same situation. Hope that makes sense. Mike, I don't know what happens to our case if Calkins loses. It depends on how bad he screwed it up. Gary says there's a group of us that the lawsuit in the third batch that have yet to be added to the court documents. That's not true, Gary. I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody that was properly submitted an application and went through the process has been added. So if you think you've not been added, send an email to Ryan at DeVoreLawOffices.com and he'll clarify for you, because he probably gets 100 emails a day going, I don't see my name, and their name's in there. You just have to find it. So there's no such thing, Gary. If you did what you were supposed to do, you have been added. Again, if you haven't seen an email, check your spam, check your email, make sure it's not there. If you can't find it, you email Ryan, and I promise you, if you filled out the application, if you got a receipt, if you signed a verification page, you're in there. I'm not saying we're perfect, but I'm saying as of today, we've never had one person that went through the process correctly not be in there. They just don't see their name. Somebody said, can Dan withdraw if he chooses? Right now, the answer is no, because it's the gut. When the order in Dan Calkins' case got entered, the final judgment order, within 2 hours, I guarantee you it is a world record in the history of mankind. Within 2 hours, the governor filed his appeal to the Supreme Court on Dan Calkins' case, because once that happened, it's irreversible. Dan can't backpedal now. He's done. Katie, bar the door. Jim, I don't know when the last date will be. I have no idea to predict that. Right now, if you're on this TRO and you're in this case, you should go exercise your rights and buy something, because I couldn't tell you. Could be a month, could be 2 months, could be 3 months. I don't know. Worst case scenario, you're talking May, June, July. Worst case scenario. That's an excellent question. Who said that? Jeff. Jeff, is it Goetson? Is there a path to get the procedural issue to the Supreme Court, even though Calkins' case does not include it? Maybe. Let's say that Dan goes to the Supreme Court. He is in the Supreme Court on the equal protection, and he loses. And as a result of him losing, they try to stop us from continuing to fight about equal protection in our case. Can we still fight about the procedural issues? Yes. But the Supreme Court, Jeffrey, doesn't have to take that issue by itself. They could deny and refuse to hear the procedural issue in a vacuum. If the procedural issue is tied to equal protection, they have to take it. That's what we were trying to accomplish. But if Dan absolutely does the worst job and we get, the word I'm thinking, I'm not going to say it, sorry, we could lose the opportunity for any of it. It's absolutely possible. So I don't know yet, Jeff, but it's possible that we can't make that argument. Yes, Daniel, excellent question. So let's be clear. If Calkins wins, Calkins won nothing. Because all the Calkins case is, you guys, is a complete rehashing of your case. There's nothing new. He took your case. When I say your case, 7,000 of you that paid me to make an argument for you. I made that argument and we won at the appellate court in Mount Vernon, the Accuracy Firearms case. That's your case. Dan grabbed a hold of that case. He stole it, proverbially speaking. He didn't literally steal anything. Don't say I'm accusing Dan of a crime. He didn't accuse any crime. He took it from you, ran to Macon County, filed it real quick, went through a quick process, and ran to the Supreme Court. So Calkins, even if he's successful with your arguments, not his. I want to make sure that you understand that, Daniel, okay? So, but if that happens, and then they reintroduce a bill in Illinois without any exemptions, where does that leave us? That leaves us in the federal court on Second Amendment issues. We still got the federal court Second Amendment issues. It wouldn't take that away, okay? But here's the thing, Daniel, that I want you to consider. We get rid of this bill based upon equal protection, and all these exemptions are gone. I don't think the legislature in Illinois has the political horsepower to pass this law without those exemptions in it. Can you imagine to pass that law and not exclude all those politically influential unions? Can you imagine? The Democrats aren't going to do that, Daniel. They can't afford politically to do that. So if we get rid of this law with these exemptions in it, I'm not so sure, Daniel, it comes back, because I don't think they can get it passed. If you got to say, okay, all of you prison guards and all of you law enforcement, you guys, you can't have any personal weapons either. I don't think they get her passed, man. I don't think they can do it. So could they? Yes. And then we'll go to the Second Amendment and fight in the federal court. But I don't think they get her done. Is there hope for the best case scenario? Yeah, of course there is, but I don't have a lot of hope in, and again, I'm being as respectful as I can be here. I don't have a lot of hope in Dan and his legal counsel, because they've not done anything yet. Again, they've not put any work in. All they've done is take our work and copy and paste it. They didn't do anything new, you guys. That's what scares me. You get to the Supreme Court, how little of an effort are they going to put forth? I don't think they're going to do anything. I think the governor's going to eat them alive. So is there still hope? Yeah, it could be, but it's all going to depend on how hard they work, right? Are they really going to put in the hundreds of hours that it takes to put the best case. They've already given up all the hard work on the discovery. And we got that discovery done. We'd have been rocking. They didn't want to do that work. They didn't want to do it. So how hard are they going to work now? I don't have any confidence in that. And that's me being respectful. I just don't have any confidence. It's too late for Dan to amend or do anything. He is stuck with where he's at, and it is absolute worst case for him, and it's absolute best case for the governor, the attorney general, speaker of the House, and president of the Senate. Best case for them, worst case for Dan, worst case for the people of Illinois. That's what's in front of the Supreme Court right now. If Dan wins, could we still proceed with the procedural issues from our case? Maybe. The court doesn't have to hear it. Supreme Court doesn't have to hear it, you know. And so, yeah, maybe is the answer. I don't know the answer for sure. Maybe. Julie says, so he's blowing it on purpose. Julie, I don't know. Blowing it on purpose or not. I don't know why he's doing what he's doing, right? Did the attorney general come to them and say you've got campaign finance issues because you took all this money in your campaign account and, you know, you need to work with, I don't know. I've had people speculate that, but I don't speculate. All I know is none of it makes any sense, Julie. So maybe you guys could ask him that question. But from what I can tell, he's not speaking and responding to people. So I don't know why he's doing what he's doing, but it makes no sense. I don't know one lawyer in the state of Illinois. I have friends who are excellent litigators. None of it makes any sense to them. Why it's irrational. That's what they say. So Julie, I wish I knew the answer, ma'am. I don't. No, there's nothing illegal about Dan taking the documents that I had prepared for you and copying them and reusing them in another case. It's not illegal, right? It's not illegal. It's lazy, and it's probably a little bit of lacking in morality because Dan was looking to be some kind of glory child. Maybe he wants to run for some other political office. Maybe he's got low self-esteem and he wants people when he walks in a room to go, Dan, you fight. Dan didn't do anything. He offered to pay me for these documents. And I told him absolutely under no set of facts, am I taking money from you for those documents? Go copy them off of the cases that we've already filed and retype them. That's what I told him. Not paying me for that. So again, he didn't do anything. He just took somebody else's work and used it to try to make a name for himself. That's absolutely true. And he's trying to say, well, I'm fighting for you. No, when you go fight for people, you actually come up with ideas and you come up with ways to, you know, protect and help people. He just stole somebody else's ideas, you know, proverbially speaking, and trying to make them seem like they're his own. And it's all a bunch of bullshit. Truth. Okay, let me read a few more. Do people in his association have a TRO where they can buy firearms anywhere? In our cases, no. There is no association in his case, right? That's another thing that I think Dan has a problem with is why he's rushing, because he took all this money from people under this fake association that has no benefit right now. There's not an FFL in the state of Illinois that will sell any of those people in that fake association anything. But he took their people's money. He took their money. And they got nothing for it other than Dan's little slush fund to do whatever he's going to do with it. So, no, those poor people that gave him money got nothing out of that. Nothing whatsoever. They can't buy anything. Somebody says there's a way to get a federal investigation into Calkins over the campaign stuff. It's not a federal issue. It's a state election issue. Dan's a state representative, and so anything he does campaign finance related is under Illinois law, state law. So, you know, it's not a federal issue at all, you guys. Let me see here. I think that's about it. No, Dan can't get an appeal if he loses, Benjamin. He's at the Supreme Court of Illinois right now on a state court issue. That's the end of the day. That's it. I think that's about it, guys. I'll go back to the top here and see if there's anything. We've been on about an hour. Yeah, there's a little bit of chatter going on over there about FFLs. There were a few FFLs in Illinois that once Dan and the Rifle Association said, oh, it's statewide, and they started selling weapons. ISP went in, and they called me looking for me to help them. I said, I don't have time to help you, and I'm sorry you listen to people that don't know what they're talking about. So I said, call Dan or the State Rifle Association and see if they'll represent you. Respectfully, it wasn't disrespectful. I was just, they were frustrated that they listened to those folks. And I said, I apologize. We call them, but I said, I don't have the ability right now to get in the middle of that. But yeah, it happened. That's real life circumstances. So yes, you can buy parts from out of state and have them shipped to you, Joe. Absolutely. You can do anything that you want to do before this law was passed. And if the parts people will sell them to you, you're not breaking the law. My concern is I don't want you as a client breaking the law. You're not breaking the law. I can't force anybody to sell to you anywhere. But all I can tell you is if you do buy, you're not breaking the law, okay? Thank you, Renee, for saying that. Again, I don't know. You guys know who I am. I grew up in a trailer park. I'm a straight shooter. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm going to give it to you straight. You know, if I tell you something and it turns out not to be the case, I'll come back and tell you later it wasn't the case, right? I'm not going to go around in circles. I'm not going to politic you. I'm doing any of that crap. It's just not, because it doesn't work. You got to be honest with people, right? Once you start becoming a politician, you get yourself in tough spots like Dan got him. He probably didn't start off wanting to do something inappropriate. Probably didn't start off that way, but he made bad decisions and he kept making bad decisions and then trying to cover up bad decisions, making more bad decisions. And it's turned into an absolute disaster that could very well hurt people. You can't do that, right? So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you how I see it, right? And that's the only way I know. Yeah, you guys have access. Again, I'm looking over there. Chad's always got interesting, accurate comments, not interesting. But there, you go to the website, there's 188 FFLs in these cases, so guys, okay? 188 of them. They're ready to do business. So if you're one of the, however many of you citizens that are in this and you want to buy something, go to the website, get the 188 FFLs. They're sorted by county. So find one in your county, call them, go see them, buy something, right? Let's say worst case scenario happens. Worst case scenario, Dan screws us at the Supreme Court and I can't fix it. You've at least had several months to go out and exercise your rights. And then we're still going to be fighting in the federal court, okay? We still got our federal court. We really want to win in the state court because I want to change how we do business in Illinois and pass laws, because that's a direct benefit to all of us and our kids and our grandkids. Worst case scenario, at least under state law, you've had several months to go buy whatever the heck you want, and then we'll deal with Second Amendment and equal protection in the federal court, okay? So we've still got some ammunition left to fight about this. So, but in the meantime, keep going. Hold on, David. As a TROFFL, so you're in the case, can a non-TRO owner sell an AR to me? Again, I don't represent the non-TR owner. You're not breaking the law, David. Whether the other person is or not is none of my business. I don't represent them. I don't care what they do. You can buy from whoever you want to buy from, and you're not breaking the law. If somebody else is breaking the law, that's their problem. That's not my problem or yours, okay? Let me keep here. Nathan just went and said he bought something. Good. I mean, all of you, I want all of you to be buying the heck out of everything you can buy right now. All you can, okay? You're not breaking the law, right? And if we have the worst case scenario come down upon us, at least you've had 3 or 4 months to go do what you've had to do, and which is, again, hopefully we can do a whole lot better than that, even if we have to go do it in the federal court. But at least you still have that opportunity. So, all right, that's all I'm going to do. It's almost been an hour. Keep in mind what I told you when I started this thing off. I'm going to start working on a process to where we're going to put something out here. And I've been struggling with it because I really like, I mean, I'm in courtrooms all the time. I love going and fighting in courtrooms. It's what I was born to do. But, you know, I think gun owners and parents need better representation statewide in Illinois. Statewide. It isn't, and as I told you before, it doesn't mean there's not some good gun groups in Illinois. There's a few good ones. But I think statewide, I think we can really do some good. And same thing with parents' rights, right? We don't have anybody that really spends all of their time advocating for parents' rights, okay? You guys don't have any organizations that you can join to do that. So I'm going to think about how I can put that together. And if it's successful and it works out, I'll spend all my time. Me and Ryan, we'll fight this stuff into the future if that's what it takes. But it's what people have to decide if they want to do. Because I'm not going to pay $35 a year to the Illinois State Rifle Association. Why would I do that? You want to do that, right? Well, you do have, I mean, I just got a text message, I have to say, true. You do have groups out there. My good friend Shannon Adcock from Awake, Illinois, when I wasn't thinking of her just as a parent rights, she does do that, and she does an excellent job, but she's got a broader mission than that too, right? It's a little bit different business model than what I was thinking about. It's not really a business model, but kind of a model. So not being disrespectful to my friend Shannon. She's a fighter. I love Shannon. But yeah, something along the lines of, because I was thinking of it more too, of having an organization that if necessary, we as a group, we got to go sue somebody, we'll go sue them. If it's a statewide issue, you know. While we're on, I got a little bit of time here before the minute's up. One of the things that I get a lot, and I want to make sure you guys know, is I'll get messages, Ryan will get messages, we get 10, 20 a day of people that having their individual personal issues, whether it's an issue at a school with their kid or some individualized issue. I don't have the time or the ability to be addressing people's individual. If I spent my time doing that, I couldn't fight these big fights, right? I just wouldn't be able to. So if we put an organization together, keep in mind, it's going to be dealing with statewide issues of gun ownership. Not, hey, Tom, I lost my FOID card and I can't get it back, and I'm a member of this organization. Help me get my FOID card back. Doesn't work that way. You guys understand that, right? But I have to say it because there's some people that think it does. This would be statewide issues, all right? Again, children's rights, school issues, gun issues. Those are big issues that I think we can really, they need a lot of protecting, okay? I'll be back with you on that. All right, guys, I think that's it. It's been an hour. I really enjoyed this evening. I appreciate it as usual. I love all you guys. Have a good night.